soft spot for Carolina.
And I think I have a lot of gratitude for the whole organization. I have so many great memories. I get to say I have lifelong friends that I played with in the NFL, and a lot of them come from my time with the Panthers, and I'm forever grateful for that. I'm approaching it same way I approach every game. Take them all serious, and this one, obviously where our team's at, where their team's at, we got to come out ready to go, ready to execute.
All right. There was a lack of execution last night. Brutal loss for the Hornets, dropping one to the Pacers. You're going, hey, didn't Indiana make the finals last year? Well, yeah, but star Tyrese Halliburton is out for the year, and Indiana had just one win. Unfortunately, now they have two. There was one bright spot, though, for the Hornets, and as usual, it was rookie Kon Knueppel, the 4th overall draft pick from Duke, scoring 28 more points, hitting 5 more threes. So far, that's a lot of Knueppel triples. In fact, Kon, the fastest player in NBA history to reach 50 made three-pointers. He's just the 4th Hornet to pour in 20 or more in 5 straight road games. Knueppel averaging 18 points, shooting 58% from the field, touch over 40 from deep. What a player they have in Kon Knueppel. All right, MLS schedule released today. 2 notes. They're still on the normal MLS schedule format, if you will, until it switches to the more global format after next season. The other thing, Colin, is we now know the date of the MLS All-Star Game right here in Charlotte. That's going to be July 29th. Trying to work it around the World Cup and everything. Yeah. But July 29th here in Charlotte, it's going to be a big week.
One thing I know for sure, it's going to be hot.
Yes, it will be hot at the bank, and it'll be cool to have all those stars and supporters as well.
An all-star game with all the eyes on Charlotte. I know we'll be ready for it. Don't forget our Weather Impact stream at 6:30, and then news followed by that from 7 to 9, and then our 11 o'clock show here on WCNC. We'll see you tonight. Thanks for joining us at 6. All right, I'm back. All righty, Okay. Yes, sir. 3, 2, 1. Tonight at 11, we're receiving conflicting reports on when Operation Charlotte's Web could come to an end, what we're hearing from local officials. Plus,
everyone, happy Thursday. Welcome back to Live Weather Impact right here on WCNC Plus. We've been doing this show for months, and I still feel like I forget what the show's name is every single day, Jeb, because it's like Live Weather Impact. You got Live Impact News. You got WCNC Charlotte, WCNC Plus. Just so many words. So many words, so many brands. But hello. I hope you all are having a wonderful week so far. We are very close to the end of the week. Today is November 20th. It is also a Thursday. And you know what that means? It's drought monitor time. I feel like a broken record talking about this. You might be sick of us talking about it, but unfortunately or fortunately, however you want to look at it, we have to, because we're in a dry time of the year where we oftentimes are in drier than normal conditions, but this year, as we know, has been exceptionally dry. Now, there's good news and bad news. I'm trying to give you both every single week. Good news is that we're not as bad as we were this time last month. Right? This was October 21st. This was a month ago where we saw severe drought across portions of the Charlotte area and really most of eastern North Carolina. Now, we saw improvement by the middle of the month. We know that, right? After we saw those 3 days in a row of rain. We got a little bit worse last week, but as of this week, if you look at the 2-week comparison, so from the 5th to now, there is a bit of an expansion. So again, bad news is starting to see the drought expand, kind of expected that, but good news is we are not as bad as we were this time last month. So again, got to take the good with the bad in every single situation. At least that's my goal here, anytime really in life, but also forecast wise. So let's look at November by itself. If we were not under drought conditions before going into November, we would still be pretty substantially drier than normal. Our normal for up to this date, so November 20th, is about 2 inches and a quarter, and we have only seen a 1/4 inch of rain. So just for comparison, again, that's closer to normal. I normally wouldn't say this on TV because I honestly don't oftentimes want to give like people fuel to send in like emails and stuff about things that they see are annoying, just because you have an opinion, but obviously so do we. You know, there's so many opinions out there. But I had someone emailing me last night, literally the same email like 4 times, which is kind of annoying, honestly. I love you guys, but this was just a little bit absurd. But it was about the fact that they were mad. I was talking about the record high, Jeb. And because they said we don't need a history lesson. That was literally what it said. I just want to remind people that like we don't talk about records or like comparing stuff monthly, right? To like scare people or to be dramatic. Like this is how we compare, right? Like science and data when it comes to meteorology is all about comparison, right? You have averages. Are we above? Are we below? Are we seeing trends toward above, trends toward below? That's literally what it's about, right? The mix of science and math. So it's not a dramatic thing. It's just yesterday. I mean, we were literally 17 degrees above average, which is insane for the month of November. So again, when we now compare the dry spell, this isn't to create panic around the drought. It's to let you guys know that this is something that we're monitoring. And as we get closer to the end of fall, so almost there, because meteorological winter starts on December 1st, so next week, we get more concerned because of the time of year. Or I guess meteorological winter, that's in 2 weeks. I feel like I skipped the week of Thanksgiving. Either way, that is some of our driest time of the year. So we're already dry. We get closer and closer to our driest time. On top of that, that's when we start to see more fire danger. And this is like, when I say this, I mean a normal year. On top of that, we're already in a drought. We're going into some of the driest time where we oftentimes can see a higher fire danger. And then the third thing to stack on top of that is the La Nina winter. And so because that's going to be warmer and likely drier, again, overall, that's the 3-month forecast, that higher risk for severe weather that comes with the La Nina winter means more cold fronts moving through, which means more wind, higher chance that the weather itself could cause more fires. And then again, on top of that, it also means drier. So this is likely not a winter where we're going to have the chance to like catch up on rain. So praying that it's not going to be like a decade ago where we had a prolonged drought for multiple years in Charlotte, but we are watching this trend and trying to keep a very close eye on it so we can provide you with the best data and the best heads up, especially when we have a higher fire danger index, like what we had Sunday and Monday after the pretty dry and breezy weekend. So I'll get off my soapbox now and bring it back to what's happening with the forecast. I mean, I guess I was anyway, but here we are back. Satellite and radar product right now. We are watching a lot of clouds and actually some small chances for rain moving in tonight. Here's the thing, as you look at Futurecast, I want you to keep in mind that we have very, very dry air near the ground. So some of this rain that is going to attempt to move in tonight will have to overcome some of that dry air. But I'm cautiously optimistic based on the latest trends being very, very consistent. So here's 10 o'clock tonight. Light rain moving into parts of the mountains, areas west of I-77. By midnight, 1 o'clock, this will be right over Charlotte. We will see some light rain tonight with the system passing by. It will likely be a minor impact to your morning commute on Friday. Most of the rain is over by 6 and 7, which is about the time where most people are out and about driving, but there will likely be some slick areas on the roads. Now, Friday afternoon, this is where things get a bit more complicated because we have clouds lingering near the ground and moisture high up in the atmosphere. Typically results in some drizzle. So when you look at your hour-by-hour forecast on the WCNC Charlotte mobile app, I know, again, Brad and I have talked about this a million times about how we go in and manually change those, so you're not getting the same forecast you would get on like Apple Weather or on like the Android weather app. I don't know. It's just the truth is a lot of people have iPhones, but regardless, all of that data, right, doesn't have someone to look at it. So if I had gone off of that data, you wouldn't have any of these rain chances mixed in because all of it had 0 when I was looking earlier. So you'll see a 20 to 30% chance of rain tonight with that first part moving in. And then I'm leaving in a 20% right around 2 and 3 to account for that drizzle. And then a heavier rain is Friday night and Saturday. So both of these are overnight events for the most part, with a secondary chance of a few showers around that same exact time, 2, 3, and 4 p.m. Tomorrow, it's drizzle. Saturday could be a few storms just because we'll have a lot of warmth and a lot of moisture because Saturday is also going to be likely our warmest day of the week. We could at least tie the 79 we've seen twice, if not be even warmer than that. So back to the rain first. Tonight, tomorrow night, areas of moderate rain at times, mostly light. We'll see about 1/4 of an inch of rain if we're lucky. Okay, it will likely be less than that, but that's kind of the cautious optimism that I have here. Friday afternoon tomorrow is still warm just like today. We will not be reaching records, but because of that big storm system coming in Saturday, that's why we have heavier rain Saturday morning. Saturday would be your most likely day that we could be at or above the record high temperature. Big drop in temperatures between Saturday and Sunday, but what's interesting is it still keeps us above average. So I think that just kind of goes to show the scope of the warmth. Finally, starting in the long range forecast to see that creep in of that cooler air. You can see this on the November 26th to 30th CPC outlook from the Climate Prediction Center. I do think this is notable because it shows the cool air starting to creep in, and I do think we'll have a few days where we're cooler than normal, but I do not think that this stratospheric warming hype at this point is something that is going to last too long, but we are going to talk a little bit more about the pattern changes with Tim Buckley coming up in just a few minutes. So Thanksgiving trends, as of right now, it's finally on our 7-day forecast, pretty mild, pretty average. Our normal high for November 27th, which is the day of Thanksgiving, is 59. Right now I'm hovering right around 60, and we're still looking dry as well. So here's your Jerry Hunt Supercenter 7-day forecast. Say that 5 times fast. Again, tonight, few showers possible, mostly in the morning. Same thing Friday into Saturday with a few storms. There's that drier air Sunday. Again, you can see the 10-degree temperature drop between those 2 days, but look at the averages at the bottom of your screen. 68 is still 7 degrees above normal, even though it is cooler than we were on Saturday. Monday is dry again. Another small chance of rain Tuesday, Wednesday, and then again, our Thursday forecast right now, Thanksgiving, essentially looks to be right where we should be for normal standards. We're going to take a quick 2-minute break, and then we'll be back with Tim Buckley. There's some news in the weather world we're going to talk about. We'll talk long-range climate prediction center forecast, since those have been changing a little bit over the last few model runs. And it'll be a good reminder as to why you can't always believe the hype on social media. We'll see you back here in 2. Welcome back to WCNC Plus and WFNY Plus. We are joined by the one, the only Chief Meteorologist Tim Buckley from WFNY. Tim, how are you?
I'm doing very well. I hope you are. If they're watching, it's my nephew's second birthday today, and sometimes they watch the show. So, happy birthday, Theo, over there in New Jersey.
Oh my goodness, that's so exciting. My nephew's
watchers.
4, and I think that's like the best
Yes.
age, between 2 and 4. So happy birthday, Theo. So Uncle Tim, what
There
did
you
you
go.
get Theo for his birthday?
Well, I don't think he's opened it yet, so I don't want to spoil it. But it has to do with riding bike. So not a big boy bike, but last year he's got the little trainer bike, but there's a new accessory coming soon. So hopefully
I bet
he
you're like
enjoys
the
that.
most fun uncle ever.
Hopefully, we'll see how it goes next week on Thanksgiving.
Okay, well, we have some stuff to talk about that maybe isn't necessarily directly tied to North Carolina, but does have an indirect tie. So
Yeah.
yesterday, new information came out from the National Weather Service in Birmingham, Alabama. If you guys remember 2011, big spring severe weather season, of course, in the South, there was insane amount of tornadoes that happened that month in the month of Alabama. They had a record outbreak, essentially almost 3 different times in the month of April. This was April 15th, 2011. They had tornadoes again the 20th and again the 27th. And they found almost 15 years later another tornado from that same outbreak.
Yeah, isn't this unusual? So you were sending me this, and I hadn't heard about it yet, but I'm guessing some new information came to light. And, the fact that this is so long after the fact being, gosh, it's crazy to say, we're almost 15 years removed now. So must have been someone digging in and kind of reanalyzing things and finding some new information. So what did they find out to help them, kind of make this change years later?
So this will not surprise you, Tim, but a lot of this was because of social media. So the big reason why, essentially, getting ahead of ourselves, but the big reason why this was missed was because the NWS admitted they were so busy. They were still in the process of doing storm surveys from the April 15th event when they had to pull people back for the April 20th event. And while that wasn't as bad, then they had another event that actually broke the 15th record that happened on the 27th. So they just admitted they were essentially overworked. So they were tagged in a social media post. I'm going to read some of this from the article that was posted just so I don't say anything that's wrong. But essentially the National Weather Service in Birmingham, Alabama said they were tagged in a social media post about a potential undocumented tornado. So they looked at archive radar data, satellite imagery, social media, and then eventually actually got pictures and videos from people from social media of damage that had happened in the suspected tornado path. So they went and did their own analysis kind of after they saw all of those things and figured out that there was likely another EF2 tornado, which I thought was interesting that it was a 2, not a 0. I feel like sometimes when they do these post surveys, it's a 0 or a 1. But yeah, 120 miles an hour. They say that it went from an unpopulated area in a county into a populated area. So that could have also been why maybe there were less reports, because it would be like if there was a tornado that went through like an area of unincorporated like Gaston County and then boom, like immediately went into Mecklenburg County. It's a big difference, in the amount of people that live there. Well, I thought this was interesting, Tim, and I know we talk about this all the time, but the big question from people was kind of like, why, I don't want to say why do they care, but kind of like why bother to update the historical record? But I thought it was interesting. They basically said, we need to have that data from a scientific standpoint, make sure that we get the information accurate. So this is actually part of the statement from the warning coordination meteorologist from the NWS Birmingham. So that April 15th event set a record for numbers of tornadoes in Alabama, broken then again 12 days later. We had over 100 tornadoes in that month, so April 2011. Our workload was incredibly heavy, getting that information pointed out to us, making the record right for everyone affected, and then just being able to compare the data from a scientific standpoint, making sure it was accurate and important to us. Again, they say it's understandable why they missed the track in the first place, because it was a crazy severe weather season. But they also mentioned accuracy, I thought was interesting, Tim, and credibility, because I think sometimes we can be very like semantics about the average high is 58.1 versus like 58.5. But a lot of times things like that matter. So I think it's really interesting and honestly cool that they felt strong enough that they could talk about an undocumented tornado, like you said, almost 15 years later with pictures, videos, and archived satellite data. I just thought that was very interesting, really cool.
It's super interesting, and just kind of goes to speak, how much they care about the record, right? And we do too. It's certainly helpful to have confidence in that data, and even knowing that it could be altered after the fact is, I think, really helpful. But this was such a scary year for so many reasons. 2011 doesn't feel that long ago. It has been a long time, though. But that's one of those times that basically, it was just one hit after another. Every time we're basically looking at a new severe weather outbreak that year. It was, one day after another, it seemed. So Alabama, over 100 tornadoes in a single month, which is, one thing. This one, though, the April 15th outbreak that you were just talking about, it was the day before the North Carolina record outbreak. So we're talking about back in 2011, April 16th. Anybody that lived in North Carolina in that time, you should remember this. We actually set a record here also. So there were about 30 tornadoes, and for us, that still stands for a single day outbreak. We haven't rivaled anything since then. But it was a horrible, horrible day. Brittany, I'm not sure if you remember this one in any ways. You certainly heard about it since then. But Jeb, I've got a map pulled up on my computer here. Just kind of shows you where all the tornadoes were and how bad they were across the state of North Carolina. There were 5 different EF3s in North Carolina on this day. So we're talking about April 16th, 2011 here. Most of them weren't in the Charlotte area or in the Greensboro area. This is a little bit more focused out toward central and eastern North Carolina. So I'll just pop these up. You can see it there. Raleigh, of course, had a horrible storm that kind of moved in and affected all sorts of things that way. And we can also look toward Fayetteville as well. Lots of bad storms over that way. All of the pink represent EF3 storms, and there are a lot of fatalities as well. Mostly, basically, Brittany, in the places that are kind of the most tornado prone in North Carolina. So you think about, the coastal plain, maybe not as much, but kind of the sandhills. So anywhere from I-95 up through eastern North Carolina, they tend to have, the best kind of sweet spot for severe weather a lot of times. And, I was working in Wilmington at the time. We were on TV for like 8-9 hours doing warnings. This is just one thing after another. So it's not a memory I expected to kind of be back in today, but when you talked about April 15th, 2011, I thought we had to pop up April 16th, 2011 as well.
Don't hate me for saying this, Tim, but I've heard of it plenty of times, but I was still in high school, so I was not keeping a close eye. That was my senior year, though, to be fair.
Okay. Hopefully you were safe and sound, but yes, that was a bad one for sure.
Yeah, whenever I go to a new place, and I'm sure you're the same way, like I like to go through and know like what records happened, what's historical, and so that's certainly one that Brad has always talked about, when we go back and talk about like worst severe weather outbreaks. And I think it's like February 2020 is like another big one as well. So definitely.
Yeah. It's been a little while. Do I still have you there? I feel like I lost your audio for a second.
Oh, I accidentally clicked it off. That was my fault.
I got a little button. But anyway, wrapping a bow.
Button happy, that's the word.
That might be something we have to watch later on this winter. Brad and I were talking about how La Nina, sometimes you can finish out a winter with some severe weather chances. So we'll be cautious. We'll kind of see what happens closer to February and March, but hopefully not. Hopefully not.
Yeah, hopefully not. Speaking of long-range outlooks, should we talk about how yesterday we talked a little bit about the social media hype around the cold weather, and there's been some model data that has kind of been rolling it back when it comes to how cool. Now, it doesn't mean we won't get cold again, but kind of rolling back some of the aggressive like highs in the low 40s that some of posts were showing earlier.
This is just scratching our backs as meteorologists who always preach caution in the long range, right? We love when this happens. Basically, we're just saying at this point, whenever you're 7 to 10 days away or longer, lots of changes can still happen. And as it looks right now, and Brittany, I think you'd probably agree, the cold that's been advertised and talked about just a little bit after Thanksgiving, it's still there, but it might be a little bit more short-lived than it looked, and it might be a little bit less intense than first advertised as well. Is that kind of what you're thinking when you're looking at that longer range pattern too?
Yeah, it's not only that every single model that we use has been showing that trend ensemble-wise, but also it's not just it's like the highs and the lows, which I think is important. Because like right now, we're seeing warmer, on both ends, but then this weekend, we are looking at that cool down coming Sunday, Monday, like the highs and lows will drop, but just again, still going to be higher than normal. I know that's confusing, but it's like we're so far above average now that then we're expected to be just a little bit above average. And so if you flip that, we're not talking about highs likely in like the 40s. I think highs maybe in like the low 50s, and then lows around freezing, which yes is not normal for November. Yeah. That's probably closer to like late December, early January, but I mean, the stuff that I was seeing, and obviously I know we see so much stuff on social media, was like a high of 40 and like a low of like 19. And that just looks, first of all, like it was never going to happen, but definitely like it's not going to happen, at least not anytime soon.
Anything that's, just kind of like words to the wise, anything that's presented to you without much uncertainty or with a whole lot of certainty, and this is what it is going to be 10 days from now, not credible. It doesn't mean it's not going to end up being right, but like as people who kind of live and breathe this as our job, we know how much things change in that longer range. And so it's really, I saw you do this in your Thanksgiving graphic, Brittany, which I thought was really helpful, emphasizing just the trend rather than the specific. So like, Thanksgiving is going to be 52. No, it's probably just trending to be, cooler, let's say 50s. It's probably trending to be dry, but not a total guarantee. If that system slows down, maybe there's still some rain. Those are better ways to communicate these things than the hard and fast, it is going to be freezing going into December. These things can change. And I'll pop this up real quick. I know, Brittany, you saw my tweet about this earlier. All I said was, uh-oh. This is a whole lot of data that you don't need to understand as a normal person. But basically, we're looking at the long range. Thanksgiving is right about where you stop seeing the oranges here. And then you get a couple of days where you start to see the blues. That means cooler weather is pretty likely going into Friday and Saturday of next week beyond Thanksgiving. Yesterday, this whole orange chunk section in early December did not exist. And now it does. So that totally changes the entire extended forecast. So while early December had been looking pretty darn cold, today it's looking a little less so and maybe even warmer. So all of that is just to say, don't put too much value in long-range forecasts. 7 days, maybe 10 days. That's kind of where we live. Beyond that is trend lines and speculation, and nothing too specific, I think, is the best way.
And as we know, sometimes too, everything can sometimes trim toward the climatological average, when you get past that 10-day mark. So
sure,
you could see really dramatic things actually coming into the model data, but it can trend up and down based on what the normal for that time of year is. And then you get into a sticky situation because the average high is 70, but the forecast that's coming in is 50, so they average out at 60, but now you're not prepared for the fact that you could actually see a 50-degree day maybe in March. Tim, I thought this was really funny, and so I wanted to pop it up. But Brad posted this earlier on Facebook about the cirrus clouds and how they were blocking out the sun, and I just thought it was really funny because this is a very good example of like when you see those crazy like wow, ka-chow, like wild whatever. More than likely not, if you're seeing something that looks like this with like wild words or something that just seems very dramatic, like more likely than not, you might need to double check with your local Met.
I saw a graphic the other day. It was just a map of North Carolina, and it had text that was like 130 font size, and all it said was "snow shifts." I'm like, well, what does that mean? That kind of makes me want to click it. And like, there's nothing in the video about snow for North Carolina. We don't have any snow in the forecast. I don't know what it was about. It was just like, this is our world now. So
It's like why
if that
we
works
sometimes
for
get
ya.
frustrated with like the Farmer's Almanac, because although we like love it for like the folklore, and I know we've talked about this before, but like they'll be like wacky and wild, and it's like, what does that mean? That's so vague.
it sounds like a dating profile. Is what it sounds like.
That would be my dating
So
profile.
funny.
Wacky and wild, for sure.
Yeah. So I don't know what to believe anymore when you go on that social media. It's only getting worse. It's probably not going to get better. Chances are, if you're watching Weather Impact live here on CNC Plus and FMY Plus, you're probably a sensible person and you're seeking out that good info. But we're not trying to pat ourselves on the back by any means. There's a lot of good people doing good stuff online all the time. But just make sure they're not talking to you in all caps. I think if you avoid the all caps and the sensational stuff, you've probably found a good source for weather information.
Yeah, and I will not say anyone specifically because I would never do that in general. But unfortunately, I do feel like sometimes we're seeing more people who maybe do work in television posting these sometimes more and more. So if it's somebody local that you really trust that isn't using these all caps, maybe trend toward them. Or, you know, if the world ends tomorrow and Brad Panovich is now the person who's saying crazy stuff that makes no sense, maybe double check that like Brittany and Brad and Tim and Chris, you know, and Claire, you know, are all saying the same thing, because you can probably, you know, that your averages are good if everybody's saying the same thing versus like one outlier going crazy. But to be clear, I do not think that would ever be Brad Panovich. He's like the last person to do that.
He's not here to speak for himself. We can say what we'd like. There's no such thing as a 45-day forecast. Just kind of, you know, just keep that in your mind. We'll tell it to you straight for sure.
Yeah, we won't tag anyone or call anyone out, but yeah, no 45-day forecast here. Tim, I hope you have a great rest of your Thursday, and I'll see you tomorrow.
You too.
Friday.
Sounds good.